Welcome back, guys. It's day 4 of Mealtime News. I'm your host, Henry. Let's get into it. All right, starting it off with some sad news, unfortunately. Bob Barker, who was the host of this super successful TV show Price is Right, has unfortunately passed away. I'll put a picture of him up on the screen. He was the host of Price is Right for, I think, 4 decades, super long time. Aside from being a successful TV show host, he was also widely considered to be a pretty good guy. He was a big proponent of animal rights causes. He was a big champion of this cause that we should limit the amount of pet breeding so not as many dogs and cats end up either euthanized or in the pound. He popularized this phrase, "come on down," that he would say when he was bringing guests down to the stage, and it's almost entered the American lexicon, is a phrase that people use. So we're gonna miss him. We'll remember his catchphrase. Here's a video apparently shot on a potato of him saying that. Come on down! So we're gonna miss him. Sad to see Bob pass away, but he lived a great life. All right, so the second story I want to talk to you guys about today is that Oliver Anthony, the singer of the song Rich Men North of Richmond, has come out, unsurprisingly, against the use of his song at the Republican primary debate. And why, you might ask, was he not in favor of his song being used? Well, perhaps it's because the song is criticizing rich people who work in Washington, which is everybody on the Republican debate stage.
It was funny seeing my song in the presidential debate, because it's like, I wrote that song about those people.
So he was quoted saying, "It's aggravating seeing people on conservative news try to identify with me like I'm one of them. I see the right trying to characterize me as one of their own, and I see the left trying to discredit me." He went on to say, "I've got to be clear that my message, like with any of my songs, references the inefficiencies of the government." So I think at its core, it's just a very populist song, not necessarily populism of the right or populism of the left, but just populism. And we do live in the midst of this deeply populist reaction to the last couple decades, like in the election of Donald Trump, which is obviously populism on the right, or in the near election of Bernie Sanders, where he almost got the presidential nomination for the Democratic Party, one of the most populist candidates that the Democrats have seen in the last half century. And the only reason he didn't is because Jim Clyburn basically got other Democratic candidates to coalesce around Joe Biden in South Carolina. But there's populism on all sides of the political aisle, both at home and abroad. Like in Europe, you saw Brexit, or you see these further restrictions on free trade or on free flow of people, like immigration. And so we live in this populist moment, and this song is an encapsulation of how people are feeling in reaction to this 3 decades time period where no matter which side of the political aisle the government was, you would get basically the same policies with respect to free trade and immigration. So the third story I wanted to talk to you guys about was, did Biden really say no comment in reaction to a question from a reporter about the Hawaii wildfires? You might be asking, is this an important story? Maybe not, but there's a huge controversy around it, which is why I'm addressing it. So first of all, would it be a bad thing if he did say no comment there? I think yes. I think it would have been a horrible PR look. He was vacationing at Rehoboth Beach in Delaware, and for him to be vacationing and then say no comment while a part of the United States is burning up in a wildfire and over 100 people had died, yes, that would have been a very bad PR look, and it would have fueled the Republican criticisms that Biden isn't an effective leader of the country. But now we have to ask, did he really mean no comment? Because he said no comment, but did he mean it in reaction to that question? Well, here's the clip. I think it's up for debate.
President, any comments on the rising death toll in Maui?
Will you come talk about the Hawaii response, Mr. President?
So Republicans are saying, yes, he did hear the question and he did respond intentionally with no comment. And I think they could say one of two things in defense of this. They could either say that Biden is unfeeling towards the people of Hawaii, which I don't really buy, or they could say, which seems more likely of the two Republican arguments, that Biden just wasn't prepared to respond. And it's a reflection of his incapability to do the job effectively, where he needs to be a leader that can address questions and offer Americans reassurance at times of need, and that he probably heard the question and then just couldn't come up with a response quickly enough, or didn't have a good response, and so he just said no comment. So Democrats are arguing, through a White House spokeswoman, that Biden just didn't hear the question. And this is also pretty believable. I mean, the plane or whatever was creating that noise was very loud. Biden was pretty far away from the reporters. Is it possible he just didn't hear the question? I think the answer to that is yes. To which Republicans would respond with, Biden has a long history of making gaffes. They would argue that it's just as believable to think that Biden just didn't have a good answer to the question and said no comment because he couldn't think on his feet quickly enough in a way that a leader needs to be able to do. Who's on the right side on this one? Up to you guys to decide. All right, let's talk about the Hunter Biden legal case and specifically the plea deal that he had reached with the Justice Department that has since fallen through. So Hunter Biden had, past tense, struck a plea deal with the Justice Department over his gun crimes and his tax evasion crimes. So the gun crimes were where he lied on a form when buying the gun under the threat of perjury that he was not an active user of drugs at the time that he had purchased the gun, when in reality, as evidence has shown, he was addicted to crack cocaine. And for tax evasion, he had both misrepresented his income to the IRS on top of claiming that certain things were business expenses that were actually personal expenses. I think the funniest of which being a sex club membership he had said was a business expense. So he was being charged with both of those crimes. And they had this plea deal reached. And the important part of the plea deal that became the part on which the plea deal was hung up was this provision that would have given Hunter Biden broad immunity from future prosecutions for crimes committed during this period of time. Now, when this got to the judge who would have had to, stamp this through and give this the okay, she wanted to make sure that both the prosecution and the defense counsel were on the same page about this section. She asked them in open court, and it was this really dramatic moment, are you guys in agreement about what this means for the future? And the defense counsel thought it meant that no matter what, Hunter Biden could not be prosecuted for other things that may have happened during this time period. Whereas the prosecution said that there may still be ongoing investigations into Hunter Biden. Now, Republicans argue that this was a sweetheart plea deal, and the important part was that immunity clause, because it would have protected President Biden from potentially being a part of the subject of future prosecutions of Hunter Biden. Whereas Democrats argue that the purpose of that immunity section was not to protect President Biden, but was to protect Hunter Biden from potentially vindictive prosecutions brought by Justice Departments under future Republican leadership. So if Republicans took office in the next election cycle, then a Republican president might want to go after Hunter Biden as a way to score political points. And they're arguing that this plea deal was to stop that from happening and to stop Hunter Biden from being used as a political pawn. All right, I want to talk to you guys about the Hunter Biden, Joe Biden corruption theory that's pushed by Republicans. And I want to talk about some of the Republican arguments for the theory, some of the Democratic responses to the theory. So Republicans argue that Joe Biden both allowed and encouraged his son Hunter to use his name to generate cash from companies around the world. They argue that Hunter Biden had no business being on the boards of companies like Burisma, a natural gas company based out of Ukraine, and that Hunter Biden had no business experience and no reason to be on that board other than he was the son of then Vice President Joe Biden. They say that Joe Biden was a direct beneficiary of some of the money that Hunter Biden received from this purported corruption. The two pieces of evidence that they use to support this theory is, one, there's a message on the laptop that Hunter left at that computer repair shop before the 2020 election that said, quote, leave 10% for the big guy. And they argue that the big guy in that case was Joe Biden. There was also a WhatsApp message from Hunter Biden to his daughter that said something along the lines of, I hope one day you can do what I do and support this family, but unlike Pop, I won't make you pay half of my bills. The Democrats respond to this by saying this is not hard evidence. These are circumstantial things. The messages from Hunter Biden were during a time where he was addicted to crack cocaine, so you can't really treat those with a lot of credibility. To which Republicans say, well, there is some evidence. I mean, where there's smoke, there may be fire. Who's correct on this? Up for you guys to decide. Republicans say that Joe Biden then threatened to withhold aid to Ukraine, the country in which Burisma is based, when he was vice president under Barack Obama, in order to get them to fire a prosecutor who is investigating Burisma. This is the part of the corruption, they say, where Joe Biden actually used his power in order to help Hunter Biden get money from Burisma in exchange for this favor that he could only do because he was vice president. Democrats respond to this by saying that that prosecutor was notoriously corrupt, and that basically everyone agrees that that prosecutor was corrupt, and there was good reason to fire him. Even putting Burisma aside, he would have been fired no matter what. To which Republicans say, well, everyone in Ukraine is corrupt. You can't pick an elected official in Ukraine that doesn't get money from some bad people. And so choosing to only fire the prosecutor is a sign that it actually was because he was getting money from Hunter and that he needed to do that for Hunter to prove his worth to Burisma. So the Democrats say there's no proof of that. Who do you believe? I'm going to let you guys decide. All right, guys, this has been episode 4 of Mealtime News. Thanks for sticking around. I'm doing the show a little bit differently now, where it's shorter episodes. I'm going to do more cuts, so there's not as much downtime in the episode. We're going to go over more news stories, and I'm going to try to keep the videos a little shorter. All right, follow us on TikTok if you aren't already. Check out our YouTube shorts. Thanks for watching.